Yeah, so again, would like to express my gratitude. The topic is very interesting, and in the end of the presentation, please try to share knowledge which you would be having with you, so that we enrich the total, uh, whatever we discussed today. Uh, we move to the next part, and it is the flow and the contents, what we are going to discuss today. The first part is motivation for this session. We will be discussing the background, the industrial revolutions, and now the fourth industrial revolution, which is called Industry 4.0. The disruptive technologies which are affecting us, affecting the entire system for sustainability. So in the background, we'll discuss all this and then converge onto smart grid and then to smart metering. And then we will interesting use cases, some interesting stories across the world which are coming up in the smart grid space. And in the end, as requested by Dr. Sakshi, we will also have a discussion on what the industry expects from the academia, from the institutes, from the students, and only together we can make it really meaningful. So that is the intent of having the collaboration with industry. What I feel that like the medical colleges, the hospitals associated with the colleges, and who pass out, they are very hands-on, and they learn a lot on the actual scenarios. So same way, the intent is that industry should also collaborate equally well with the institutes. So in the end, we will be discussing the takeaway. Motivation. What is the objective of this session? The objective is to spread awareness and trigger a curiosity among you to research further on these topics. The Industry 4.0, the disruptive technology, smart grid, the sustainability concerns which have come to a stage where we cannot ignore them any longer. And in the end, what we see that it is all about distributed systems rather than centralized systems. It is about the distributed systems, and we will be discussing the Atmanirbhar communities. There's a lot of discussion on Atmanirbhar Bharat, where IITs and all the engineers and the engineering institutes and the industry have to play their role. But then it can, the charity begins at home. So what we can start from the home, from the building, green buildings, the green communities. Uh, we will be discussing this. Pardon the error in communities. Uh, we will be visualizing the future with all the background and see the sky is the limit. We start thinking aloud. When you start thinking literally, you can think of your own stories to safeguard our planet, to utilize the disruptive technologies, and to help the humanity. Uh, the first industrial revolution started in 1760, 1770, when the steam engine was designed and machines came into being. And then, after about 100 years, the second revolution took place when the electricity was invented, and that gave another impetus to the industrial revolution. And mass production started, and many other materials were discovered. And then, after almost 100 years, uh, uh, in 1960s or 70s, the computers became part of industry, helping the industry to improve their efficiencies. And if you count another 100 years, it would be 2060 when you can expect another uh, going by the record. But now, around 2007, 2010, disruptive technologies started uh, showing up. And as you see in Jyotish Shastra, they say so many planets come together. They have a great impact on us. And some of the Jyotish, some of the astrologers said after COVID-19 happened that this had to happen because of this. The same way we can say that with so many technologies, the IoT, which is a revolution in itself, combined with the ability to analyze powers with the data science algorithms, and also the computers which are available today, which are far superior than the best of the supercomputer we could have thought 10 years back. So with all that happening, uh, something different is going on in the industry also, which is called Industry 4.0. You can see this from this point of view that there is a physical world and then there is a separate cyber world, and both the worlds exist together and in real time. There are sensors which are sensing different parameters of the process, and then the parameters are passed on or communicated to the analytical computers, and then they do the analysis and predictions in real time, and then the value uh, which is created out of this in real time is fed back to the actuators for actions. So all that, the two systems, the physical system as well as the cyber system, existing together in real time. So that is now made possible by these disruptive technologies. And it is also having an impact in the smart grid, which we will see in the future slides. When we are talking of technology, there's a famous quote which I like the most, that technology must be like oxygen, ubiquitous, necessary, and irreplaceable. I'll try to explain this to you with an example that you can envision that in future you are returning from your office in the evening, and the car is not driven by you. So while you're sitting in the car, you are able to do some other work or relax. And when you enter the house, you don't have to, you know, take out your uh, key and open the lock. The door recognizes you, the door opens uh, automatically, and you don't have to even wait for the door to open. As you arrive, it opens. And then when you go in, you are surprised that the AC is already on. The setting is exactly what you would have liked. So this is the example of technology that we would like to envision in future, that it is working in the background without uh, having us to press even a button, and it is also allowing us to utilize our superior minds in doing something which we should be doing, relaxing or using our brains or whatever we enjoy the most. Uh, so this is all about introduction of technology and the quote that I like the most. I like the best, and technology embedded now in our lives. Every day, one semiconductor microcontroller company uh, head was telling me that we encounter about 1,000 microcontrollers in our daily life in a day. So that number is increasing. A lot of technology is even getting embedded in our bodies. So it's changing. What has changed? When we look at the devices, when I was studying about 30 years back, 8-bit controllers, 8085, and the Gaonkar book, I think it is still relevant today, but you don't find any 8-bit or 16-bit microcontrollers today. it has migrated to 32-bit ARM CPUs, which are battery operated. The per megahertz current consumption has dipped significantly. It is even going down to a few microamperes. Uh, about a couple of years back, I was having dinner with Mr. Rich Templeton, who is the CEO of Texas Instruments, and he shared that he has a vision that the future Texas Instrument controllers will function with any power source, without any power supply. This looks very uh, looks impossible. But then I probed further, that how will that be possible without any battery or anything? So he shared something with me. I think I can, in a public forum, uh, share this with you as well, because this is something common sense, that with so much of RF being present in the environment today, you can derive some current, which is some nanoamperes or picoamperes, and Rich Templeton's team is working day night on a project that some computation in some power mode will be possible at that picoampere also. So that is the whole concept. And this is about the devices capabilities which are come up to this level, and they will be going to the next level. I from 4 byte or 32-bit IP address, the IPv6 now has 128 bits of address space, and that amounts to about trillion of IoT devices having their own internet protocol address in the internet space. So that has again caused a revolution, that uh, address is constrained no longer. The devices capabilities are there, and that means the sensors which can work on battery can be there everywhere, sensing temperatures, humidity, this and that, and communicating them at a fast speed. So for communication also, you can see there are disruptive technologies in LTE segment when it is cellular, or 5G coming in now, optical fibers, Wi-Fi, and whatnot. The Bluetooth has become a de facto standard for local port in any of the gadgets that you will see today. Computation power, as the CEO of Intel said that Moore's law, which was postulated in way back, 50 years back, uh, uh, it is still alive and kicking. What it says that in a device, the number of transistors become double every year. So you can see if they are doubling for the last 50 years, how many trillions and numbers of transistors would have been integrated in a chip. And this is what we see: quad core, octa core processors. Uh, this is the fourth example of big change which is there. And then when you have so much of sensors, so much of communication with that type of throughput and that type of scale, you need to derive some value out of it. So the big data handling, the data science, the artificial intelligence, machine learning, all that is again supporting this, and these are all complementary technologies which are changing the way we live today, and they will be drastically changing the way we'll be living in future. But it comes with a caution that what we have been doing in the last 2 decades, eating away the resources of the planet, we should be doing just the reverse of it, and everything should have a consideration for sustainability. Uh, this is an example of the growing IoT devices. At 2020, we are at 9.9 billion, and it is expected that this is going to be more than double in just 5 years, 21.5 billion in 2025. And what would be the mix of these technologies? Almost half is Bluetooth. Zigbee, as I hear, there is dying its own natural death. So Bluetooth is the de facto standard for any local wireless port in any other device, becoming faster and faster. and USB for serial communication. This has become a standard now. You don't find any serial RS 232 ports any longer. Wi-Fi for all the devices we use every day in our mobile, in our speakerphones, in our laptops, cameras. So this is a big chunk of the IoT technology, communication technology, and going forward it will be LTE and also 5G in the cellular space. When it is low bandwidth, low cost communication, it is NB-IoT, which is making waves, and we see a lot of possibility there. Cellular technologies, different type of application, different type of speeds, different type of throughputs. Uh, at the lowest end, we have NB-IoT for sensors, then CAT M1, which is unfortunately not supported in India by any of the telco players. So CAT 1 again becomes a very important choice, about 1 Mbps type of speed, good throughput, supported by all the telco players in India, whether it is Vodafone or Airtel or Jio or BSNL. CAT 4 is a full-fledged uh, uh, LTE implementation of machine-to-machine modem with diversity included. So this is the entire spectrum of cellular communication technology. 5G, it's a very different technology. When it comes to India, we'll see that 100 times more speed than what we get in 4G. So sometimes we wonder what we will do with so much of communication speed, but then the applications are also becoming more complex. We have the virtual reality, deeply immersed gaming, healthcare, which is again very essential application. With 5G will contribute a lot, and smart grid, where the scale is high, the number of meters or the sensors in the smart grid, uh, the electric vehicles coming in, the distributed energy resources. So all that will be generating a lot of data and to control the entire system. 5G type of speeds and throughput would come very useful. And then with so much of communication, so much of sensors, it is all about data. Uh, as I remember, the last war was fought uh, in the times early 90s when Mr. Bush was the president of US, and it was mainly about the oil. But now you see every day there are questions on the privacy of data, the data leakage cases. So, in fact, data has become so valuable in the coming times that security of data and the ownership of data becomes equally important. Energy storage is another technology which we should watch. Uh, the lead acid batteries are giving way to lithium ion high density batteries. Tesla is expected to enter India in 2021, as the Honorable Minister Mr. Gadkari announced just a couple of days back. It's a welcome news. Lithium ion is again very good technology, and China has a lot of clout over this, and we need to see if we can find out any other technology which could be disruptive in nature for storing energy, because when we are talking of renewables, intermittency plays a big role. You have the sun only for 5 6 hours in a day, and uh, wind, if you're depending on wind, the wind is also not available throughout the day. So for the rest of the time, if the energy is stored and it is available for use, energy storage becomes an important component in the entire smart grid system. We come to smart grid. Traditional grid, the system was pretty simple. Energy was supplied by the utility, uh, and it involved generation, transmission, substations, where you step down the voltage, and then the distribution. Uh, but where it was used, the consumers paid the money, so the utilities got the money back. So things were that simple. Things have changed a lot. There is a new term, prosumers, which you would have heard of, producers and consumers. So with people with rooftop solar, they are consuming energy, and when there is a surplus energy, they are also exporting energy to the grid. So that term, prosumers, and the whole action from the generation side, the SCADA side, is now shifting to this area where the energy is consumed, where there are micro generators and also storages, electric vehicles, and whatnot. Uh, New words, new terms. So some of the terms like fifth fuel, four fuels are known to us. We use the petrol or diesel in our cars. We use the gas, the natural gas for cooking. Coal is not used anymore, and the biofuel. So these are the four fuel that I can think of. And what is the fuel? Uh, Many of you would be knowing, but this being the season of cricket, there's a famous saying that run saved is a run made. And same way here, a kilowatt saved is a kilowatt hour produced. And fifth fuel is nothing but the energy efficiency, that we are able to save energy by reducing the waste. That becomes the fifth fuel. E-mobility is the electric vehicles, which we will be coming across in our daily life very soon. And environment, we discussed sustainability, renewables, security, storage, demand response. The peculiar property of electricity is that it is consumed the moment it is generated. So the generation and the consumption or the demand has to match all the time. Now, how do you do this? How do you make the demand curves flat? The demand response programs and all other means, availability based tariffs or time of use tariffs, all these are examples how utilities uh, try to reduce the peak load versus the average load. Smart grid, uh, in the center there is centralized generation, but then lot of distributed things, integration with microgrids, communication, sustainability related initiative, security. So whatever we discussed so far, all is there in this diagram. In order to understand it in a better way technically, we will consider the layers. First is the physical layer, where we have the distribution system, the smart meters, and all type of physical apparatus. On top of it is the communication layer, where the data is communicated from the physical layer to the application layer for ERP, for billing purpose, for customer administration, or customer support, operational things. And this is an example of smart utility landscape, smart meters with different type of communication technology, GSM, RF, PLC. The data is collected by head-end system, and then on standard bus, it is interfaced with SAP or any other uh, uh, ERP system which is there. And on the other side, you get all the information on your mobile about your projected bills, your bill, like you have for your mobiles. For crew also, the mobility solutions, they can have the app which authorizes them to read from a meter or do the diagnosis in the field. Smart metering. So we are converging down to smart metering. There are different stakeholders to this program. The Prime Minister announced some years back that about 250 million, about 25 crore meters in the country will be replaced by smart meters. But the program is running very slow because of many reasons. But why smart metering? What pains, what purpose would it be serving? So let's look at it from the viewpoint of different stakeholders. The utility, they would be looking at the smart meters to reduce their AT&C losses, to reduce the growing peak demands. There are many provisions in the Indian standard that if the sanction load limit is exceeded by the consumer, you can disconnect the load for some time and connect again. Billing and operational efficiency, energy inefficiency, addressing that pain, aging infrastructure. When you replace with the state of the art technology, control of renewable sources, and very important is a very accurate demand forecasting, because it is like a share market. If you are able to forecast more precisely, you end up paying less. And if you have a sudden demand and you have to furnish that, then the payment which the utilities do to the generation companies is enormous. And that is why we see load shedding happening. So demand forecasting is a very important function where the smart meters will be helping the utilities. Consumers or the prosumers, better quality of power, awareness. Always there is a doubt that the meter is running fast and the utility is charging more. So if you are aware that every 15 minutes in the last 1 month, how you consumed your energy, how much of kilowatt, how much of reactive power, then you tend to get convinced. And it is seen that if the awareness is there, the consumers themselves tend to reduce about 8% of the power consumption. So that is again going to help uh, fifth fuel, adding to the fifth fuel. Government and regulatory agencies, they are also concerned on the data security. There are many agencies like income tax who would be interested in the recording made by your meters and communicated to the heading system. Changing scenario, we already discussed the electric vehicles coming in and the consumers. How the evolution took place. So, in terms of meter, there were meters very precise with diamond bearing and like the wrist watches, and then the measurement changed to electronic quartz crystals, but the display was analog. And then came that point when the display became electronic, multiple displays. In addition, uh, in addition to the time it measures your heartbeat and many other things. Many sensors in a smartwatch today, but then it is also communicating the data to the server. And on your mobile, you get all the statistics about your health, what you should do, what you should not. So other devices like meters are also following the same path. Smart meter is having a lot of horsepower. It measures energy in four quadrants. It also measures import of energy, and when it's a bidirectional energy, then it also measures the energy which is exported at different time. So with lot of horsepower, this cannot be considered as just a constrained resources device. It can do a lot more. It can do some edge computing. It can do the aggregation work. And as Lord Kelvin said, that if you can't measure it, you can't control or improve it. But the new thing is that even if you measure it, if you can communicate it, or you can process it or act on it, act on the value which is derived in real time, then you can't improve it. Uh, Boils down to the data now. The data coming from the smart meter, which is specific, for example, the interval data, the billing data, or temperatures or any other additional parameters which are measurable. And of course, it has to accurate and the sustained accuracy should be maintained for the entire life of the meter. Data which is relevant uses, and there are certain end users. So the each data is then connecting with the end use. It's timely. Uh, just to emphasize timely, current meters are read every month. The meters are read if it is not billing system. You get the bill after another week or so. So there's a lot of time gap between the consumption and the money, and the payment cycle is about 2 months. With prepayment systems, this the timely thing becomes sensitive. Emerging possibilities. We would like to share with you one paper in 2000. This is about in homes. So we took help of some of the research work which was done in IIT Madras and in their incubation center. And with their help, we were able to get some gadgets which work on 48-volt DC, and we compared their performance and their power consumption with the existing ones. And to our surprise, we found that the consumption for the same performance was less than 50%. The apparatus that we use for this was a very simple one. Solar panels, MPPT charge controller, and the lead acid batteries, and the DC and the AC gadgets. Based on this, for the students in villages who are not able to study in night, night time, using LED tube and one BLDC fan, uh, about 10 hours of duration we were able to see. So if there's no electricity in a house, a student can use a tube light and a fan and can study and sleep without having to depend on the external electricity. Another paper that we published based on our research was on the extra features which smart meter can provide for consumers as a second line of protection. We are not claiming that it is a protection device which has to pass many other tests. But if by chance any of the protection devices for short circuit or for the electric shock, if it fails, then as a second line of defense, the smart meter has got all the resources and the computing power to disconnect the supply and save either the fire on short circuit or the electric shock. When it was compared, we were able to see that the sensing and disconnection takes about 5.7 milliseconds, which is comparable with an MCB, the short circuit protection device which is used in our home. And for electric shock, it was about 26.4 milliseconds. And according to the graph, it is well within the fatality period to save a life. Green buildings, another concept that we need to learn from what happened in Europe. They incentivized the solar rooftop so much that everybody wanted to have more and more solar panels, and they were exporting. As a result, that there was a lot of strain on the distribution system in Germany, particularly, and their grid started tripping. So now the utilities are very much concerned that they need to control what the prosumers are exporting on their distribution system. So this is a scheme where instead of using one smart meter, which is a bidirectional energy meter, you use 2 meters. And the scheme is such, it is designed in such a way that when the availability of power or the tariff is high, that means the availability is low. At that time, the building would like to consume the power from the battery, from the stored battery, or from the solar. And when the uh, grid is having abundant power, it would like to take power from this and store the batteries from solar. So this is the entire system with high density lithium storage batteries, the panels, two smart meters with different algorithms connected with the server, and the related apps. Interesting story on the electricity, the parking lots trading the electricity, because if you imagine when you go and park your car, first of all, the parking space is not there because it doesn't make that much of a business case, or I think planning has not been done. But with the electric cars, you can imagine that you park your car in your office or even in a mall. It might happen that car generates some money for you while it has been standing there. The EVs are nothing but moving storages. So there is a scarcity of a shortage of electricity during that time, and you have allowed it to sell certain charge. Uh, it can get more money. So this is one experiment which happened, and I have added the reference here. This might well become a case uh, in our in our life. Uh, Blockchain, when the prosumers are exporting energy, they are exporting to retailers in most of the countries. So if blockchain concepts are put in place, like it happened in Netherlands, using blockchain, they Juliet is a token, and it is named on joule, which is the unit of energy. So they have experimented, and in a community, they are having their own currency. They generate uh, uh, Juliet tokens by exporting energy or by exporting water through water harvesting, and in turn, they are able to spend it within the community, and all that transaction is recorded by the blockchain system. One more interesting example, Mr. Sonam Wangchuk, who comes from Ladakh, he shared in a tweet about a week back that he was in Delhi for some days and he found it very cold. And when he is back in his home in Ladakh, he is in a t-shirt. And he also pointed out that they have passive solar buildings in Ladakh. And these passive solar buildings are built with such a technology that all the heat which is there uh, coming from sun during the daytime is absorbed and it is not allowed to escape. As a result, you don't need any heating system or any electricity to keep the houses warm. Agriculture is again a very important avenue of smart grid. The population of the world is going to, it is predicted that it will be increasing from 7.8 billion today to about 9.7 or 10 billion. And agriculture production rise of about 70%, 69% would be needed. How it can be achieved with the help of technologies and by preserving uh, the nature. So a lot of use of IoT technologies, analytics, sensing in agriculture, and the estimated IoT device that is also going to go up phenomenally from 75 million today. Uh, Water, energy, food nexus, WEF, again a very important concept. In a campus like IITs or NITs, one can uh, try this. So water, uh, through water conservation, rainwater harvesting, uh, having a pond in the campus where there are fishes, where there are bacteria. So the water comes from rainwater harvesting and it is kept fresh by these things, and fishes are grown, fish becomes a food, and some organic farming. So all that together can give a lot of uh, satisfaction if we try this as a project. Future Grid, as we see, there's no centralized generation, or the centralized generation load has become less. So the load on the transmission also becomes less. So there can be, we can envision a time where transmission probably would be reduced, and at one time there won't be any transmission lines. Uh, Storage, as we discussed, is again a very important component. So instead of having a big storage, micro storages in the buildings, in the community would be very helpful in addressing the issues of intermittency associated with solar and wind. And they will also help in flattening the demand curve. So the last topic, in the last 5 minutes, let us discuss what the industry in general expects uh, from academia. Uh, New skills are becoming more relevant: reliability, security, because when the devices and at that scale are on internet, they are also vulnerable to security attacks. Security then becomes a deep subject. Scalability. What we test are a few units only in a system, but when they go in the field, they scale up to millions. So how can we predict the behavior on that high scale by testing on a small number? For reliability, we have accelerated test, halt, HAST. By doing the test for a few months, you can predict for 20 years of life statistically. But for scalability also, there are methods, and scalability becomes a very interesting subject for the industry. Integrated testing, and of course, data science. Uh, Fundamentals. Uh, so what the industry expects is the fundamentals should be clear, and once the fundamentals are clear, uh, one is uh, one can apply those to solve problems. But if the fundamentals are not clear, then the next step also becomes doubtful. We expect that the students do lot many projects while they are in the institute, and they can also collaborate with the industry for their projects. Documentation is a weak area where we feel uh, documenting the IP when you are in industry is very important. And if the students make publications, they publish in IEEE and such reputed journals, a lot of learning takes place, which is not taught as part of the curriculum. And the habit of going into the details, attitude of ownership, and habit of asking why before starting any project or a task or any study. So these are some of the points which I could think from my experience, and I wanted to share with you. The key takeaway we have discussed that sustainability is a concern we can no longer neglect, and the disruptive technologies in sensor, in the communication technologies world, and also the real-time processing, which is enabled by the data science algorithm as well as the devices which are available. Quantum computing is being talked about. So with that type of processing power, the things will change very drastically. And how do we prepare for that is the question. Uh, in the end, shouldn't humans be doing exploratory things for continuous improvement and leaving the intelligent machines to do routine, boring, and repeated things? With this thought, I would like to end this session here, and we can have some questions.